Hello, it's Tom from BlackToad Studio here, and today we have a slightly different game. We're having an 1850 point using the London GT tournament rules. We've got Zach coming down to do a couple of games with us using that particular rule set. Just as a slightly different way of doing the army sort of review in front of you here, this is basically what I've taken, and I'm going to go a little bit more into depth as to why I took what, etc, etc, so you can understand my thought for a tournament list here. Maybe right, maybe wrong, but this is the way I play. So essentially, down here we have 1850 points of my Black Templars with a Imperial Knight there, which is a Knight Gallant, so fully melee. And down here we have my HQ, which is Hellbrick again. Some of you may realise that this is quite similar to one that I took recently, however with a few modifications. So for starters, we've got Hellbrick here, who was in the last list, and he is taken purely for his Warlord trait, and also for his trait he gives for the army-wide buff. Essentially, he gives the entire army for one phase of assault, fleet, and hatred for all their army, essentially. So it's quite good for combat and getting the rerolls to hit, essentially. Here we're running with a squad of Grav Centurions back there, all as is, so Grav Amps and missile launchers in the chest, and also the Sergeant has got an Omni-Scope to give him some split fire and some night vision. Behind them we have a Demos Vindicator. I did run a normal Vindicator, however I think the Demos one is a lot better for the points. I love the fact that you get the 3 heavy shots off it. It's very anti-tank, and if it does go off properly and hits nicely, you can get some pretty decent kills with it. So that's the reason I've taken that, is to give myself a bit of protection from high armoured units. Obviously, if it blows up itself, it does, but that's just it's very rare, and I'm hoping that it stays in there to the end of the game. I will move on to some troops quickly now. Gone with 3 scout squads here. They've all had a veteran sergeant upgrade, and the veteran sergeant is also carrying melter bombs, and they all got combat weapons. Now that is purely to take advantage of the trait from Hellbrick. So in the assault phase, they're getting a lot of attacks, and also it gives them a little bit of anti-vehicle potential with the melter bomb, because obviously they're also mounted in the land speeder storms, which you can see behind there. They've purely been taken for mobility, so I've only given them heavy flamers and all them, but that gives a nice bit of anti-troop on there, and obviously with the concussion Cerberus launcher underneath, which blinds as well. I think that's quite handy. A little bit of kit for dealing with kind of low initiative armies, and also just to give them a bit of help on the way in, because obviously as they're assault vehicles, they can charge out the top of them. Moving on the right here, I've got a Leviathan Dreadnought. Now this is something I wish I'd taken last time, and it's purely because actually it can be extremely hard to get off the table depending on what your opponent brings. Obviously because it gets a 4 invulnerable save off the bat, which is quite nice. Also I've given it a storm cannon, it's got the heavy flamers, and I've given it 3 hunter killer missiles on the top there, and the armoured ceramite to kind of prevent melter weaponry doing too much damage to it, because on the fact it's 13 and 12 on the back, it makes it quite hard to pop, and in combat it's pretty troop proofed unless they've got power fists or thunderhammers, etc, or any kind of rending weapons, which is quite nice. So yeah, he's just mainly to be there to be a bit of annoyance and something that you do have to deal with eventually. The only drawbacks with him is you can't score points with him because he's not allowed to, and he always has to assault if he can. However, he does get some bonuses if he does. Behind them up in the air, now I took a Raptor wing last time. I did like it, however, I decided, just because points wise, trying to fit in all the land speeds was going to be quite difficult, and I decided that actually I just wanted to take a couple of flyers just to give me a bit of protection from the air. So one's armed with missiles, the Typhoon missile launcher, one with the twin-linked las cannon, and obviously they've got the assault cannons at the bottom there. So they'll also give a little bit of bonus for the Death in the Skies part, which is for the reserve rolls essentially. So it gives you a bit of air superiority, and also protects you from if you don't have flyers and the other person does. And then finally over here, obviously I mentioned earlier, I've got the Knight Gallant with the 2 weapons on it. I always decide to take my Knight to either fully shooty or fully combat. I fancied a fully combat one here. The idea behind him is that he's always going to be a bit of a threat, having moving 12 during the movement phase makes him quite easy to get across the board. And the fact is, if he does get in combat with most things, he will destroy it as long as he's got the initiative. I mean, obviously there will be cases where that isn't true. And you know, fair enough, but I think he's quite a threat, and I didn't want to upgrade it with any additional carapace weapons and things like that because I didn't really see the point. He does have the obviously the melter gun on the top there, which I've paid for. So yeah, that's my 1850 points. Whether you see what if you want to make a comment on what I picked and tell me why I shouldn't or why I should. Quite happy for feedback because I don't play many tournaments. I'm starting to get into them now. But I'll try to play with the models I've got and the way I want to play. Obviously, I know it probably isn't the most efficient army. However, looking forward to playing with it, and we'll see how it does. So that's my 1850 points of Black Templars. Hi, that's Tom from BlackToad here, and I'm here with Zach from the London Grand Tournament. And he has bought 1850 points of Eldar here, and he's just going to go through the list with me here before we start our game and explain what he's got and why he's bought things in the list. So, Zach, over to you.
Thanks, Tom. So, I've got an Eldar list that's built around fundamentally strong units. The core of the army are the OBSEC jet bikes. So, we've got 6 3-man squads of scat bikes. So very versatile, you know, everyone knows the firepower that scat lasers can put out. They're MSU, so 6 squads, all OBSEC, so they're great at mission winners. You go second, you've got a high chance of winning the game if you've got any of these bikes left alive. Combining that with a Farseer on a bike, we have potential role for Invis as well as Shrouded. So Shrouded is the key to this list because it gives all the bikes the 2-up save, which is how you keep them alive till the end of the game. Invis is obviously great to have on the Wraith Knight. But we've got another trick with the Wraith Knight. So this Wraith Knight is actually armed with the decans, but for this game he is playing as a Scat-Axe Wraith Knight with the Hellstorm flame weapon. Combining him with Eldrad, what we have is a scouting, potentially invisible, 2-shot Hellstorm model of death. You know, he's going to be running around the board, very hard to kill, can kill pretty much anything he likes, and is a major obstacle for any opponent to deal with. So we've got effectively a great mission-winning army combined with a great multi-purpose killing unit. Now you may have been seen sort of hiding in the background, scattered across the board. We've got 6 squads of spiders. So this is the LGT format, so it's 2 detachments. We've got the CAD, which is the main force you're seeing in front of you. 3 fast attack chart choices of spiders. But we've also got the aspect host of spiders as well. So in total, 6 squads of 5. Spiders are great for dealing with anything, you know, they're wounding against initiative, so they generally can hurt pretty much everything, but they're also very resilient. So what we've got here is objective secured game winners, Maelstrom winners, so Eternal War, Maelstrom, and then generally everything in the army being strength 6 or better can hurt pretty much everything in the game. So it's versatile, it's dynamic. It obviously has some lists it struggles with, but they're in the minority. It's generally a multi-purpose list that can take all comers. And generally can take them quite well. So that's sort of how the list works. Each person, whether it's the Farseer or Eldrad or the Wraith Knight, sort of enhances each other aspect of the list. And they sort of work together to mutually support each other.
Okay, awesome. So that's all that. So that's the list. So we'll now get onto the game. Okay, and this is Zach's deployment for his Eldar. He's just going to walk you through what he's done.
So I rolled Psychic Powers. I did pretty well, got Shrouded and Invis with my first Farseer. Which is what I was after. So I deployed all in the ruin and was intending to go first as I had Shrouded, so I was going to bubble up, cast Shrouded, sit there for the 2-up save all game, and then use my Wraith Knight to basically pick off the things that ignore cover. You see these speeders. Unfortunately, I got seized upon, and that kind of changes things. So instead of being able to, you know, go hard, hit first, and wipe out the things I was particularly scared of, I decided to use my scout moves from Eldrad's Warlord trait to move my Wraith Knight back out of range of the Grav Sense and the Farseer away from the bubbled up unit here, just to keep him a little bit more out of the way. Eldrad rolled terribly on his powers, so he's going to hang out in the bunker all game and try not to die. And the spiders all deployed in reserve, doing what spiders do. They're going to come down and be sneaky.
Indeed.
Got the comms relay with the bunker, so you know I'll be able to pretty reliably get them in when I want them. And that is my deployment.
Lovely. Cheers. And this is my deployment for my Templars. Obviously, the speeders have moved up, having done their scout, because I seized and they've moved up already. So essentially down here, got my knight hanging out down here. Didn't quite know where to put him because I knew things would probably move out the way of it to start with. Relic Leviathan just down here. Got the Demos Vindicator Predator here. He was obviously lining up a few shots possibly at the Wraith Knight, but he is now moved out of the equation. And obviously same with the Grav Sense, but they're now just being a threat down there. I scattered the speeders all up forward to try and put a bit of pressure on his units that can be shrouded, because obviously got the flamers on them. So that is it. We'll now move on to turn 1 for Templars. Okay, so for Black Templars turn 1, the movement phase. Down here, this land speeder storm was moved up to try and possibly flame this squad down here. We have the Knight that has stepped over terrain, moving towards this area of the board, along with the Relic Leviathan, which is hopefully going to get at least one shot off through there. The Vindicator has stayed still, just to possibly overcharge for 3 shots. And then over here, the remaining 2 land speeder storms have moved up. One landing successfully on difficult terrain, not immobilising itself, and this one landing here, obviously to try and flame a couple of floors there. So that's my movement phase. We'll now move on to the shooting phase. So during Templars turn 1 shooting over here, this land speeder, which is snuck underneath this barricade here, managed to flame off a couple of the bikes there. And also, moving on over to this side of the table, this speeder down here did quite a good bit of damage in there. Got a few units off each of the squads hiding in there. It's not too bad. I haven't got an assault phase, but I did do some running. So down here, the Knight has moved up further just to get himself a bit closer to the action. Likewise with the Relic Leviathan, because all his weapons are actually out of range. And this Demos Vindicator did take a couple of shots at the squad hiding up in the ruins over there, but unfortunately, obviously, it got some good cover saves, so didn't do any wounds. So at the end of that phase, I managed to score 2 points. I managed to get 1 for holding objective 1 down here with the Hellbrick squad there, and managed to score 1 additional point over here for being 12 inches in the deployment zone. So that is the end of Black Templars turn 1. We'll now move on to Eldar turn 1.
So I've just finished my movement phase. Effectively what I've done is try to get away from the Knight and Leviathan, which are a major threat to the Wraith Knight. I do have obviously the flame, so the open top transports are looking like enticing targets for me.
Indeed.
So effectively all I'm doing is trying to create some space between myself and the major threats against me, staying away from the 30-inch threat range of the Grav. So that's my movement phase.
Okay.
So I've just finished my turn. Had a pretty good psychic phase, albeit don't have many powers that are effective. So I got Invis off on the Wraith Knight, Guide off on a 3-man squad of bikes, and Shrouded off. Hence my positioning here. Everyone in my army is pretty much going to be rocking a 2-up cover save, except the Wraith Knight is invisible. Shooting, couldn't quite get 2 land speeders with my Hellstorm shot, so I went for 1. Killed the speeder and all the guys inside with no escape, which was a fantastic little roll for me.
Indeed.
The scout bikes picked off the other 2 speeders and then 1 scout squads. Unfortunately, these guys popped out of line of sight, which prevented me sort of jetpack assault moving over here and taking this objective. I did get destroy 3 units in the shooting phase and a couple of other points, I think. But really, this was just a preliminary turn for me to get away from the Knight. So yeah, pretty good. We'll see how next turn unfolds.
And so at the end of turn 1 for Eldar there, Zach managed to score 5 points, including a first blood one as well. So we'll now move on to turn 2 for the Templars. Okay, at the start of turn 2 for Templars, I roll for my reserves, and one of my Storm Tanners come on, and he's gone straight forward here, lining up a shot against the Wraith Knight. My Imperial Knight here has moved forward as far as he could go to that ruin there, possibly because he probably can't get there this turn, so he needs to sort of think about next turn possibly. Relic Leviathan not really in range or anything, so he just moved a bit further forward. And the Demos Predator stays still, likewise with Hellbrick squad here, because they're still holding this objective, which is a valid one at the moment to hold for 2 turns, so I don't really want to move them off there and lose that. So that's the end of the movement phase. We'll now move on to the shooting phase. So Templars turn 2 shooting, and down here somehow a magical frag grenade dropped in and managed to kill 2 bikers off, which was pretty impressive considering. Other than that though, everything else in this particular area here So the Vindicator and the Storm Talon here shot down over the Wraith Knight. Unfortunately, lots of cover saves going there, so no wounds, and also some pretty bad rolling on here, and also hitting on 6s doesn't help. Down here, the Storm Cannon from the Relic Leviathan shot through here, and it didn't do any damage in the end either. So the Knight did a quick run up here. We've marked him on the top there, so he's 4 inches ahead, essentially, and that is that. So we'll now just do a quick assault phase, and we'll be back in a minute. So at the end of turn 2 assault for Templars, they charge into that lone biker and finish them off as a suspect, which is good. And over here, Hellbrick stays still, so managed to get 2 victory points for holding that particular objective for the end of that turn. So he's now free to move about. And other than that, that was it really. So we'll now move on to turn 2 for Eldar.
So my turn 2, 4 squads of spiders came in. I've got secure objective 5 all the way over there in the distance. Hi spiders. Yep. They've come down just to get me that. 3 other squads of spiders come down. It's my sort of do or die turn. I'm going to try and take out the Centurion so I can start making my way up the board. So 3 squads of spiders should take a couple of them off. The rest of the bikes are effectively just skirting away from the people that are their biggest threat, which is getting tied up in combat over here. And similarly, the Wraith Knight has come over here to line up a couple of shots on these guys with the blast variant of his weapon. So yeah, still a defensive turn, but hopefully next time I'll be able to push.
Okay.
So a reasonably successful turn for me. Spiders. Oh, well, let's start with the Wraith Knight. Wraith Knight was a catastrophic failure. Shot everything at the Centurions and did nothing. Lots of 2-up saves passed. The Spiders then had a go. 15 spiders in total. Ended up doing 3 wounds. Yeah. So we've got 1 sent down, but not as many as I would hope. Was hoping for 1 more. The jet bikes did overperformed. First squad killed the scouts, which was the primary target over here, was to get rid of his obsec. So the rest all snap fired at the flyer, got a couple of 6s, and then failed his cover saves after I got through. So nice little bonus prize over there. Eldrad hanging out in the bunker, pulled his little trick and shot Eldritch Storm in the psychic phase. Nice big blast here, and got both the Leviathan and the Knight. I've only managed to take a point off the Knight as the Leviathan passes saves. And then the Spiders hanging out down here just scored me some points. So good turn for me, 5 more victory points from Maelstrom. So yeah, high scoring turn.
Lovely, cheers. So at the start of turn 3, a movement for Templars. Hellbrook has been brave and gone up here to try and take on one of the Warp Spider squads, while his Centurion squad down here has dropped down to take on the other one down here with a bit of luck. The Vindicator, Demas has turned around to lend some fire in this direction because basically he can't really see much else at the moment. Likewise, the flyer that came on has lined up a few shots over here to hopefully try and thin that squad out as well. The Knight has moved from his position over there this way to head towards the bunker over here, because he doesn't really fancy running off that way at the moment, because he'll just be chasing around after things. And the Leviathan, unfortunately, feeling a bit useless at the moment, because he's in the middle of the board with not much to do, so he'll just do what he can with his Storm Cannon. That's the end of turn 3 movement for Templars. We'll now move on to shooting. Okay, so turn 3 shooting for Templars, and the Vindicator first of all tried to shoot over at the Warp Spiders. However, they very kindly jumped out the way in this direction, so lost line of sight. So then the Storm Talon decided to follow up and managed to chip off 2 from that squad, so not too bad. The Leviathan fired all of its weaponry, including the Hunter-Killer missiles at the Wraith Knight, and managed to take off a wound, but he saved it. So yeah, not good. The Imperial Knight has charged over this way, got a good run move, so he's lining up hopefully for next turn to this building, but we shall see. That is the shooting phase. We'll just now go on to the assault phase and see if Hellbrick and his Centurions can do any damage. Okay, so turn 3 assault here for Templars, and sadly Hellbrick decided that he was going to trip over his own feet as he charged in, so he absorbed the Overwatch, but is now just standing there looking a bit like a plum, ready to receive fire next turn. And over here, the Centurions made it in, but didn't manage to do any wounds, but likewise back to them, nothing hit them either. So even Stevens there, however, they have obviously jumped back out of combat. So next turn, we'll see what happens. So at the end of that turn, I didn't actually manage to score any points in that particular turn, so we'll now move on to turn 3 for Eldar.
So spiders are in. I've gone for another sort of high-scoring Maelstrom turn, which I think should hopefully seal the victory. Got 2 odd and 2 even. That's going to give me 4 points. What I've done here is line up all my scat bikes to be able to see in the underside of these buildings, hopefully kill the Centurions. And then the spiders are positioned such that I can either run 3 inches up or 3 inches down a level and either shoot the Centurions or kill the Chapter Master, albeit unlikely. I've got a squad of spiders and deep struck hint over here to get the objective. They're probably going to die, but you know, it's 2 VPs if I get on that, because both the even ones that are in the middle of the board are being dominated by the Leviathan. Eldar in the corner is hanging out. Full knowledge, if the bunker blows up when he gets charged by the knight, he'll probably die in the explosion, so he's got out just to make the charge distance a little longer. We'll have another turn of Eldritch Storm, but that's mostly just for jokes. And Wraith Knight is lining up the charge on Leviathan for next turn.
Yeah, lovely.
So very successful shooting phase for me. Managed to kill Centurions and the Predator with scat bikes and the Wraith Knight. Single squad of spiders managed to polish off the Chapter Master. 3 Rens and 3 failed saves, and then a 1 on the next dice roll. So pleased about that. Other than that, just scoring turn for me. So some spiders hanging out here for claim objective 6, which is the other even one. 5 over here, which is the other odd one I need in addition to the others. Eldar rolled a 1 on his run move to try to escape the knight, but fortunately Eldar have all the rules, and he fleeted it for a 6. So yeah, he's running away from the knight too. He took another whole point off with Eldritch Storm again. I think this squad of spiders is probably going to die this turn, but yeah, lined up nicely to take Leviathan out next turn, and hopefully the knight turn after.
Okay.
So yeah, just some jump moves in the assault phase. Try to get my spiders a bit closer so they can get in the sidearm with the Leviathan next turn. And yeah, a big turn for me, scored 6 points.
So at the start of Templars turn 4, the knight has moved up to hopefully get a decent assault off here. The Storm Town has done a 90 and turned off this way to try and lay some fire down on some of the warp spiders down here, to try and at least clear out one of them maybe. And the Relic Leviathan has turned around to deal with the squad that's nearest to him, and hopefully they will be gone as well. That is turn 4 movement. We'll now move on to the shooting phase. So during the shooting phase in turn 4 for Templars, the Talon attempted to shoot the unit just down here, but they've jumped out of his range, so that wasn't very good. And over here, the metal gun fired, and yep, he's gone. So that's it. He's now sitting there looking a bit kind of like, what do I do now? But hey ho. We'll now move on to the assault phase, because the Relic Leviathan is not going to shoot because he wants to make sure he gets the charge. So that is that. So at the end of the assault phase there, the Leviathan predictably did finish off that squad there, apart from one who has jumped all the way over here, out of harm's reach. And the resultant score there for me was 2 points, both from the knight over here having killed the HQ, and obviously the Witch Hunter one there, so 2 for that. So that leaves me on 2 there. So we'll now move on to turn 4 for Eldar. Go.
So spiders are getting in position to rear shot the Dreadnought, as is the Wraith Knight, who's going to charge. The jet bikes are going to snipe the plane, so the Wraith Knight's a little bit out of the way. And then that's pretty much it. It's all sort of showdown in the middle. Knight's out of position over there, so I'm sort of ignoring him. and yeah, we're going to see if we can roll some sixes. So yeah, pretty good shooting phase. Effectively, the spiders shot rear arm and then ran away, and then the one that was in the side ran to the rear and shot. Rolled an amazing quad 6 with one squad and 2 fails, and then the other guys picked off one more. So lining up the charge now with the Wraith Knight. Hopefully he won't roll less than, what do you reckon that is, about 3?
3 inches.
So yeah, we've already had one missed charge today on a 3. So let's see if I can better him. Should we get live action roll?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Ooh, makes it.
No, you're definitely in. All right.
So yeah, we'll catch you up in 2 minutes after I kill this guy. So as you saw, I made the charge, then promptly smashed him in the face.
Yeah.
So yeah, killed the Leviathan, and then realised that I forgot to shoot my bikes at the plane in the shooting phase, so that's why the plane's still on the board. And then scored 4 points for Maelstrom. So yeah, next turn, all battle stations to kill that knight. I'm not sure how I can do it though.
So at the start of turn 5 for Templars, over here the Storm Tower shot up over the top over here to get some shooting solutions down there. The knight has actually gone through this building and he's currently sitting there, so we're just sort of having him marked that dice down there. So we'll now move on to the shooting phase. So at the end of my turn 5, nothing really happened. Over here, Tan shot down at the bikes, but didn't manage to do any wounds. And over here, the knight has just run through just to try and get a bit closer to hopefully finish up in turn 6 somewhere if there is one, etc. So we'll now see what happens in turn 5 for Eldar.
So we've just trying to mop up this turn. Spiders moved, so they were in range here. 2 squads of spiders going to go for the side arcs of the knights over here. My Wraith Knight's moved up for a 7-inch charge on his knight, and the Farsi is just sort of tagged along with the Wraith Knight to make sure I can invis him up before I get into the for the charge. Yeah, so now psychic phase.
Okay, so at the end of turn 5 Eldar, there was no more of my units left on the board because all the spiders shot in here, and obviously the Wraith Knight shot up at the flyer over here and got that as well. However, over here, these spiders here managed to finish off the knight with some good shooting on the side armour. So that is it. I am off the board, and that is that. We'll just come back to you in a minute with a recap. Okay, so at the end of the game there, the actual victory points was 39-6. However, that does actually equate to 20-0 in the London GT format. So obviously, I got completely trashed there. However, still a fun game. I've had a good morning of 40k as usual. So we're just going to do a little recap between us here, and then we'll come back to you on video. So obviously, just had a game with Zach from London GT here. So essentially, good game. He's just going to fill in a few bits and pieces here. So and how he thought the game went and why the lists worked the way they did, I presume. So
yeah. So I took this list as an example of one type of list that you could potentially take to the London GT. It's particularly strong in our format because of the multiple small units. So if we look at how the game ended, so the knight actually died, so we'll just take him off quickly. Half and half, that represents a dead knight. So this is a sort of final state of the board. As you can see, all my spider squads are actually still alive. So these are really pivotal to how I scored so many points in the game. While I ended up on all the objectives, that's more because I tabled them. The reason that I scored so well is because the spiders were keeping him busy and either distracting him or scoring me the Maelstrom points. And even in cases where his Leviathan Dread, one of his big combat units, charged squad, it's still hard to kill them. So we end up with situations like this, where you have one Exarch hiding. It's very hard to wipe out because he's a small model and he can flicker jump. And he's effectively getting me 3 VPs there, as well as whatever else he did in the game. So very, very powerful unit. In this list, I've got an aspect host plus 3 fast attack squads, which are they're different coloured.
Yes.
But regardless of whether they're hitting on 2s or 3s, their purpose in the list is to score points, not necessarily to kill lots of things. The flip side to that is something that I spoke a bit about at the beginning of the game, but didn't actually come into play here, is the horde of bikes still left alive. So I was rolling for Shrouded, and I got it. So without any ignores cover, we've got a very resilient blob of objectives secured there. Had this game either gone to turn 7, or if it was more on the board and it was going for a turn 5, being a bit closer, instead of seeing this blob sitting here, they would be completely separated out. So where they're currently positioned, they're within 48 inches of every objective on the board. So what effectively I've done is I've hedged my risks in terms of what I can score for Maelstrom with the spiders and what I can score with Eternal War with the bikes. Combining that with just a very points efficient hammer or anvil unit in the Wraith Knight basically means that what I've got here is domination not only of how the game works in terms of points and scoring, but also in terms of board control. So I can play both spread out objectives like this with the jet bikes turbo boosting around, or I can play objectives placed together. So if you're thinking about building a list for the LGT and you want to be building a list that's optimal for winning missions on points, this is a very good one, or an example of a way you can build one to optimize both sets of how you score points. So you've got the Maelstrom points and you've got the Eternal War, and we've basically picked two of the best units in the game at scoring those points, backed up by the Wraith Knight. If I was going to change something of this list, I've got Eldar in there primarily to give the Wraith Knight scout so that he's a threat on turn 1. But Eldar by himself is a quite a big point sink and quite a liability. So I would probably, if I was going to play this list again, try to find 60 points, 55 points, and get a D cannon and put him with a D cannon. Again, because if you get 2 units scouting, you can get that in range in turn 1. So I'd probably look to find some points, maybe drop a squad of bikes to get that in. But otherwise, I think it's a strong list. If anyone wants the detail, please email us at info@london40kgrandtournament.co.uk. But all round, great game.
Yep.